Hello, everyone. My name is Andrew from Geisinger Health and Wellness. Thank you for attending. Today, we're going to be discussing cholesterol, the unsaturated truth. Before we begin, I will go over our general disclaimer. This information is being provided in order to increase your awareness. It is not intended to be used as medical advice. If you believe that you have any medical conditions or specific questions regarding your health, please speak with your physician. So to get into it, we're going to talk about what is cholesterol. So cholesterol is a waxy, fat-like substance that is found in all of the cells of your body. And excess cholesterol can form plaque on the artery walls, making it harder for your heart to circulate blood. Cholesterol also comes from two sources. The first is your own body, specifically your liver. And your liver makes all of the cholesterol that your body needs. The other source is the food that we eat, specifically animal sources. So think of things like red meat, full fat dairy, poultry, etc. And the liver produces more cholesterol when we eat a diet that is high in saturated fats and trans fats. So not only are we ingesting more cholesterol, but our body, our liver is going to then make more cholesterol as well. However, cholesterol in itself is not a bad thing because it does need it just to function normally. Cholesterol is used in cell membrane structure and formation, hormone regulation, and vitamin D production. So cholesterol in itself is not bad, but like many things, if you have too much of it, it can be a bad thing. So why cholesterol matters? As the amount of cholesterol in your blood increases, so do negative health risks. As we know, cholesterol circulates in our blood, and there's usually no symptoms by just having a high cholesterol amount in your bloodstream, like many other things. So that's why it's so important to have your cholesterol checked regularly. And if there is too much cholesterol in your body, it's going to build up and lead to some other conditions. High cholesterol is one of the major controllable risk factors for coronary heart disease, heart attack, stroke, and we're going to get into that in a lot more depth coming up. But before we do that, we need to talk about the types of cholesterol. So cholesterol, again, is transported through the bloodstream, and that is done by lipoproteins. So they just help move the cholesterol through your body. It's produced by the liver. And these lipoproteins are just particles that are made from a combination of fat and protein. Think of them as little taxis. And they're going to move that cholesterol and the triglycerides through your bloodstream. And there's going to be two types of those. There is high density lipoproteins, or HDL, that you'll have it seen in the presentation, as well as low density lipoproteins, or LDLs. And the only thing that differentiates the two is just the ratio of the protein and the fat. So when we look at those two types, the HDL, the high density lipoprotein, that's our good cholesterol. That ratio just shows that there is more protein than there is fat. And what the HDL does, it's going to carry that cholesterol from all the blood vessels and it's going to take it back to the liver. The liver is going to break it down and send it through the body, and it's going to help excrete it from the body. So having a high HDL cholesterol is going to help keep our LDL bad cholesterol low because it's going to remove it from the body. So with that being said, the more HDL cholesterol that we have, the better. On the flip side, there is LDL cholesterol. This is our bad cholesterol. The ratio for those lipoproteins is less protein and more fat. These can stick to our blood vessel walls, and they can lead to a condition called atherosclerosis, which we're going to talk about. But that being said, that is going to increase your risk of heart disease. The next type that we have is triglycerides, and this is just a specific type of fat in the blood. Our body uses triglycerides as a source of energy. However, when you eat more calories than your body can use, it's going to convert those calories into triglycerides. And having a high triglyceride level can raise your risk of stroke, heart disease, heart attack. And having high levels of triglycerides is also going to lower our HDL cholesterol. So a little bit of trivia for you. Which type of cholesterol is the good and which type is the bad? So I'll give you a second to think about it before we move on. So our HDL cholesterol is the good cholesterol and our LDL cholesterol is the bad cholesterol. So now that we know what's good and what's bad, what about the ranges? We've all had blood work before, and it could be a little daunting to look at these numbers. when they're just on a sheet without really any background or information. So again, these are just general recommendations. Your doctor might have different recommendations for you based on your medical history, your family history, etc. But when we look at all these ranges, we want to make sure that our numbers for optimal health are less than what the high ranges are. So for the LDL cholesterol, we want to see that be under 160, because that's that first number that's going to break into the high threshold. And then when we look at the triglycerides, we want to see that below 200 whenever possible, because again, that's the first one where it's in that high threshold. If your doctor is setting specific numbers for you, maybe you have a chronic condition, you've had a prior stroke, heart attack, maybe a strong family history, they might put you on some medications that we'll talk about later, but those are going to help you get into those optimal levels, those first ones. So for example, the LDL being less than 100 or your triglycerides less than 100. Next is our total cholesterol. This is just the combination of all the cholesterol in your blood. This is something that is less used recently than in years prior. More recently, we look at things like the HDL to total cholesterol ratio, just to paint a better picture. Because when we see a number, I'll use 215 as an example, that would technically be high, but we don't know how much HDL you have compared to LDL. So maybe you have a very low LDL and you have a very high HDL, and that would be good. But when we just look at the number 215 for your total, well, hey, that's high, that's concerning. So that's why we don't really rely on that too much and we look at the whole breakdown. And then the last one, the HDL cholesterol, this one's a little tricky. The chart goes in reverse order because this is the only cholesterol that we want to see high. We want to have as high of a number for the HDL as possible. This one is also broken apart from men and women. For men, we want to see it above 40, and women, we want to see it above 50. Again, the higher, the better. I mentioned medications before. There are no medications for your HDL cholesterol. Some of the only things that are really going to affect that is having a well-balanced, healthy diet that we'll talk about, getting a lot of cardiovascular exercise, and some of us, like many other things, are just genetically predisposed to having a high HDL cholesterol. So now that we know about the ranges, what about the risks? So there's many things that are going to increase your risk for high cholesterol, and there's factors that you can and can't control. So today we're really going to focus on the things that are in your control. However, we're going to mention some of the uncontrollable risk factors just to make you aware of them. This is just an overview of them on this slide. The first one is tobacco use. That's a controllable risk factor. There's a lot of reasons why you shouldn't use tobacco, but for the sake of the presentation today, it's going to decrease your good HDL cholesterol, and it's also going to increase your bad LDL cholesterol. Moving on, having a high blood pressure, having diabetes, having kidney disease, or hypothyroidism, those all put you at a greater risk for having high cholesterol as well. When we look at age, we have an increase in cholesterol just as we age. For men, those numbers are over 45, and for women is 55. So again, uncontrollable risk factor, but something to be mindful of. Another one is our genetics. Some things just run in our family. So if mom, dad, grandpa, grandma, brother, sister, they have some of these conditions, it's very likely that you might be predisposed to them as well. And then moving on, weight, poor diet, lack of physical activity, these could all attribute to having an increase in your cholesterol level. And we'll talk about those in the next slide. So more often than not, unhealthy lifestyle behaviors are going to be the main culprits behind having high cholesterol. It's most often these things on the screen right here. Because again, your body produces all of the LDL bad cholesterol that it needs by itself, but having that unhealthy lifestyle is going to make your body produce even more LDL cholesterol than it needs, and we mentioned that previously. But some of those behaviors that can negatively affect your cholesterol levels is going to be things like an unhealthy diet, a lack of physical activity, smoking, and just carrying excess weight. And these lifestyle factors, if we don't do anything about them, can lead to some complications. So if left untreated, that high cholesterol is going to cause a plaque buildup in our arteries. And over time, this is going to lead to a condition called atherosclerosis, which we mentioned before. Atherosclerosis can result in life-threatening complications, such as a stroke, such as a heart attack, or angina, which is chest pain, especially during exertion, having high blood pressure, peripheral vascular disease, or even chronic kidney disease. This is an example of atherosclerosis. This is showing the plaque buildup in the artery. So that buildup is not only going to be your excess LDL cholesterol, but it's going to be fatty substances, calcium, and some other things. And over time, you can see that the narrowing of the arteries, and that is limiting the amount of blood flow through them. You can see in the picture that bright red wall, that is where it used to be. And then when that plaque buildup occurs, you can see the thinner wall forming in between. So how much space is actually lost? And again, this could lead to life-threatening complications such as heart attacks. For example, let's say this is a coronary artery, an artery that is surrounding your heart. If that becomes completely occluded or limited enough, it could lead to a heart attack because there is a complete blockage. Or it could lead to a stroke because maybe a piece of that plaque is going to break off over time. It weakens eventually if you have high blood pressure, and it breaks off, and that can travel to your brain, causing a stroke. Very serious. So we know we need to lower our cholesterol if we're at a high risk or if we already know that we have high cholesterol. So you can do a lot by just changing your lifestyle. So you can maintain a healthy weight. Even carrying a few extra pounds can contribute to having a high cholesterol. So losing 5 to 10 pounds can even help reduce your triglycerides as well. You could practice a heart healthy diet. We can engage in some exercise. We could quit using tobacco. And even if at the end of the day you end up taking medications, you still want to continue with these lifestyle changes. So that way, once your cholesterol lowers enough, you can get off of these medications because you don't want to be on them forever as well. So let's talk about some of these more in depth. So eating healthy, you want to follow that heart healthy diet. So you're going to want to choose foods with heart healthy fats. So those are going to be unsaturated fats. We want to completely avoid trans fats whenever possible. And we want to reduce our saturated fat intake by selecting lean protein sources and low fat dairy options. We also want to limit refined carbohydrates. So those are going to be our table sugars and sugar sweetened beverages and snacks. And we want to make sure that we're consuming foods rich in fiber. That one is super important because when we increase our fiber intake, it actually reduces our body's cholesterol absorption. So it's very, very helpful. We're going to go into all of these in a little bit more depth. So we mentioned saturated, unsaturated, and trans fats. So those are the three different types of fats. So to go through those, saturated fats are found in animal-based foods, such as your red meats and your whole fat dairy products. So we want to limit saturated fats because that's going to lower that unhealthy cholesterol levels in our blood. So these are going to be your solids at room temperature, so your butters and your lards, and these are going to raise our LDL cholesterol and our total cholesterol levels. Saturated fats, these are the ones that we want. These are the good ones. These are predominantly found in foods from plants, and we will see a lowering of LDL and total cholesterol by eating these. So you want to incorporate these into your diet whenever possible. These are going to be your liquids at room temperature as well. So your different types of oils like olive oil and canola oil. And then trans fats, these are our partially hydrogenated oils. These are man-made manufactured fats to improve shelf life and taste and texture of products. So these are going to increase our LDL significantly as well as lower our HDL cholesterol. These are also all labeled on our food labels. So it's very important to read our ingredient labels and avoid these whenever possible, as there is no health benefit to eating these. So when we're choosing foods with heart healthy fats, again, those are unsaturated fats. They have a lot of omega-3 fatty acids in them. Very good for us. So some examples there are going to be nuts and seeds, avocado, fish, especially salmon. And as I mentioned, our vegetable oils are olive oils, flaxseed, things like that. These are the type of fats that you want to try to increase in your diet because it's going to help improve your cholesterol levels. It's going to help improve your HDL and it's going to decrease your LDL cholesterol levels. And then avoiding trans fats, as I mentioned, these are going to be things that are found in stick margarine, shortening, processed sweets, baked goods, some fried foods, some packaged foods. Think of like the tasty cakes and the desserts and your microwave popcorn, or sometimes I call it fair food. Those are all going to be containing trans fats. And if you are reading these on the label in the grocery store, they're going to be labeled as partially hydrogenated oils in the ingredients list. These, again, are going to increase our LDL and our total cholesterol levels. You want to choose lean protein sources and low-fat dairy options. Saturated fats are going to be those red meats, like I mentioned. Those are going to have a whole lot of LDL cholesterol in them. They're going to increase your total cholesterol. So instead, when you choose those unsaturated fats or those very lean cuts of meat, you want to make sure that you're baking them, you're broiling them, you're roasting, making them into stews, stir frying those, rather than things like deep frying. We want to choose low fat options for dairy, so our 1% options, or maybe some fat free options such as skim. Maybe when we're talking about things like cheese, we might want to do part skim or reduced fat cheeses. When we're cooking as well, we want to choose vegetable oils such as olive oil and canola oil, sunflower oil, instead of things like butter and lard. And of course, we want to limit our fatty, marbled meats, fried meats and fried foods and deep fried foods. And when we are having those things, we want to choose leaner cuts. We want to trim off the excess fat. And the same with poultry, always remove that skin whenever possible. We want to limit refined carbohydrates. So these are going to be foods that just have a lot or a high amount of simple sugars, because these can raise our triglyceride levels. And as we mentioned, high triglyceride levels are associated with heart disease. So again, these are going to be our table sugars, our sweet treats, and our beverages that are sweetened with sugar. And the last one here, as we mentioned, is to consume foods rich in fiber, because they're going to help decrease the absorption of cholesterol in our bodies. And thus, it's going to lower our LDL cholesterol levels. So these are going to be our fruits, our vegetables, beans, lentils, and whole grains. And I want to put an emphasis on focusing on whole forms of produce rather than things like juices and smoothies, because those types usually don't have that much fiber in them. You want to make sure we're getting that fiber. That's the whole point. Again, a little bit more trivia for you as we approach the end here. So there's the 3 types of fats. What ones do we want to limit? Give you a second to think about it before I jump to the next slide. So we want to limit our saturated fats. We could definitely still have those, but we just want to make sure we're limiting them. And we want to completely avoid trans fats, as there is no benefit to eating those. And then exercise. Exercise could do a lot for us, but to stay specific today, exercise can improve our cholesterol, specifically by raising our HDL cholesterol levels. And as I mentioned before, when you have a higher HDL cholesterol, it can help to work to lower your LDL cholesterol. So with your doctor's okay, you could work up to 30 minutes of cardiovascular exercise most days a week. Typically, the recommendation for normal, healthy adults is 150 minutes of cardiovascular exercise, whatever it is that you enjoy. So that could be walking, jogging, running, biking, swimming, using a stair climber, elliptical, arc trainer, whatever it is that you enjoy. I always tell people the best exercise that you can do is the kind that you're going to enjoy and you're going to do again. So that 150 minutes a week, that would break down to 30 minutes for 5 days a week. But you could do a combination if you want to do more than 30 minutes if you are physically fit enough and you have a doctor's okay to do it. And you want to just make sure that you're staying motivated. Maybe find an exercise buddy, join some exercise groups, maybe do some group fitness classes, get outdoors, whatever it is that's going to keep you engaged. And you can do short intervals. If you can't do 30 plus minutes all at once, it is a-okay to break that up into shorter bouts, maybe 15 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, as long as it's adding up to 30 by the end of the day. And the last one here, in some cases, your doctor might prescribe medications to lower your cholesterol levels in combination with all the stuff that we talked about during this presentation. And statins are going to be the most commonly prescribed medications for high cholesterol. Other medications may be prescribed as well, and you're just going to want to talk to your doctor and ask any of the necessary questions that are listed on the screen here. So you're going to want to ask questions such as, how and when should I be taking this medication? So how often? Are there any medications I should not be taking with this medication? Should I avoid any specific foods, alcohol, or activities while taking this medication? And what are some of the possible side effects that I should be made aware of? These are all very important things, and you want to make sure you're going into taking new medication with all of the info you need. So that wraps up our presentation today. I hope you guys enjoyed, found it very educational and engaging. Before we wrap up, I just want to pause on our member resources slide here. These are all things that are available to you, so please feel free to take a picture of this slide or write down some of the links. We have a mail order pharmacy, so you can get your medications delivered to you. You can either call a number or go to the link. Medicare Advantage, if you're approaching 65 and you like the idea of all of your coverage coming from one plan, that would be Geisinger Gold Medicare Advantage. 24/7 telenurse service, as well as the bottom here is to share your success. If you would like to scan the QR code or go to the link at the bottom, you can share your success if you have made any changes thanks to participation in one of our wellness programs, a challenge, a class, or maybe even this presentation today. But again, as we wrap up, my name is Andrew from Geisinger Health and Wellness, and I just want to thank you guys again for hopping on today. You guys have a good day.